Hi folks, this is Eric Johnson. If you're anything like me, at this point with the Forrest Fenn treasure chase, hunt, find, death, you've got to be like me. You're going, what in the hell is going on? What an amazing development, a sad development, but an amazing development that Forrest Fenn has died. I immediately went to the conspiracy theory that he killed himself before I found out what actually happened. Before I go any further, I want to do a shout out to Scott. Scott sends me stuff sometimes and it really helps. He's a friend on the internet. Never met him personally, but he's a friend on the internet. And he's really into a lot of stuff, and one of the things he's into is the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt. So first of all, let's get to the biggest news of all for a lot of people, which is that a lot of people know that Forrest Fenn died, but they don't know exactly what happened. I found out from reading a comment this morning. And in fact, what happened was Forrest Fenn died at his home surrounded by family. I'll just read you something out of the Albuquerque Journal. He fell at home. After a trip to the hospital, he was taken back home where he died surrounded by family members. He may have had a heart attack. He had signed a do not resuscitate order in 2017, according to a report from police who responded to the scene on Monday. A caregiver found Fenn unconscious on the floor of his study at 8:30 a.m. The caregiver said that she went to check on him because by that time he was usually in the kitchen making waffles for her and his wife Peggy. That was a normal routine for them, for Fenn to get up and either make breakfast or make waffles every morning. Family members were quickly summoned. An ambulance was called to take him to Christus St. Vincent Regional Medical Center. Still unconscious because he had signed this do not resuscitate clause. He was returned back home to be with his wife before passing away a short time later. So there you have it, folks. Present at the time of his passing was his wife Peggy, 66 years old, their daughters Kelly Sparks and Zoe Old, and their husbands and their 3 grandchildren. An Office of Medical Investigator pronounced Fenn's time of death at approximately 5:04 p.m. No indications of foul play. When the first responders were initially dispatched to the home, apparently it had been reported by people who called from the Fenn household that he may have had a heart attack. To use the English expression, gobsmacked. I was gobsmacked to hear that Forrest Fenn died, because as we know of the whole history with the Forrest Fenn chase and all the events that have occurred, it was just like, you've got to be kidding. And of course, people are already saying, and will probably continue to say in spite of this information coming out about how he in fact died, that he committed suicide, that he retrieved the chest because he knew he was dying. Maybe his cancer had come back. That's what first occurred to me. The cancer came back, and so he knew he was dying and retrieved the treasure. But supposedly, and I'm going to say supposedly, but supposedly he died of a heart attack and fell, and because of having the non-resuscitate clause, they just simply didn't revive him and bring him back, which I'm sure they would have been able to do with our modern medicine, but it's not what Fenn wanted. When I first heard that about the non-resuscitate, I thought, wow, what a selfish thing for Fenn to do, to leave Peggy behind. But then I thought, Eric, who you kidding? He discussed it with her, and she may well have one too. So that kind of went out the window. I realized that they're at a stage of life where they both may have said, come on. you get to a certain age. I've told a story about a good friend of mine who died at 97, and she was telling me when I would visit her at the nursing home, she told me flat out, I don't want to make it to 100, and she was 97. She just said it's just no fun anymore. I can't really see well, I can't hear well, I can't really taste well, I can't get up and walk around because of my balance. And she was ready to go. So I guess there does come a point where, you can just agree with your spouse or whatever that if you go, that you're just going to go, and the other one allows that, and that's how it goes. I don't know. I just don't know, folks. It's so strange, the events that have occurred for all of us searchers. You know what I'm talking about. Just so odd. It all started at the first of the year. That's the timestamp I have on the Calazar interview where K-Pro interviewed Fenn. It was January of 2020. And out of the blue, Fenn brings up the S Corporation. What the hell's the S Corporation? I said. A lot of people said that. I got on the internet and all these people are talking about the S Corporation. And everyone figured out what it was. And basically, the S Corporation was a corporation that you can set up for a property, a possession, whatever, I guess. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know these things. But you set it up to reduce your liability, and it shields you. It shields you to a large extent from lawsuits, etc. So suddenly in January, K-Pro says to Fenn, I'm paraphrasing, but I've watched it a number of times to make sure I get this right. I'm paraphrasing, but K-Pro said, now, as far as the treasure chest goes, when the finder finds a treasure chest, he owns the treasure, right? He owns the whole thing, right? And Fenn goes, I said, I give you title to the gold. Very specific, he said, the gold. So immediately you're going, oh my goodness. For the first time now we realize there could be distinctions in the treasure, gold, non-gold, gems, etc. Right? And Fenn is saying, I said I give you title to the gold. Then, as if that wasn't bad enough, he follows it up by saying, but there's a lot of sub-chapter S's in there. And then he says, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. So what is Fenn telling us? He's telling us that the way the treasure may be distributed, taxed, owned, may vary from item to item or types of genres of gold versus gems. Who knows? We don't know because we aren't the finder and we didn't get to go through this discovery. But suddenly, out of the blue, after 10 years, we find out at the start of this year that there's an S Corporation that is now shielding the treasure. And Fenn doesn't say if he's the owner, if the finder is the owner, etc. He just leaves it at that. I don't want to say any more about it. There's an S Corporation that is shielding this treasure, and I just said I give you title to the gold. That's all. Classic Fenn. Right? Wow, what does that mean? Now this is more than half a year before the treasure's found, right? But still, we had never heard of this before. The S Corporation, the idea of any kind of legal structure to the treasure chest. We were out there for 10 years in this kind of innocent, like, man, I'm going to find the chest and I'm going to take it home, put it under the bed or put it in a safe deposit box. And then after 30 days, I'm kind of going to, might contact Fenn and then I'm going to own it and all that. No, Fenn say, no, not so fast, not so easy. And in numerous interviews before this year, we had Fenn saying he'll know if the treasure had found it. He repeated that numerous times. He'll know if the treasure's found. So he seemed to have thought of everything, as someone else told me. Fenn, a number of people have said that to me, actually. Fenn has thought of everything. I agree. He has. It's just so weird. It's just so odd the way things have gone right up now to this death. The treasure, the find of the treasures announced on June 6th. Fenn says it was found a few days earlier. He announced it on June 6th, which is, I seem to be the only one that thinks has any merit at all as something to notice, that he announced it on D-Day, the day that we invaded Normandy Beach and beat the Germans in a very, very, very important battle. It's a military milestone. That was the day that Fenn decided that he was going to announce the find that had happened, he said earlier, maybe only by a few days. There may or may not be some point to that, but it's just like what we all know with Forrest Fenn. You're always having these questions. All these things, this constant jumble of reference points that come to you when you're dealing with Forrest Fenn. Like the poem itself. I mean, there are just so many ideas you can apply to every line to that poem. Every stanza. So Fenn announces on the 6th of June that the treasure's been found, and he'll put out photos and more information soon. And people, of course, we want information, we want to know, we want to make sure it was found, we don't believe you. I think that's healthy personally. I think that's healthy dealing with life in general. I think it's healthy dealing with watching our government, how it works. I think it's healthy when you see what's going on in the country. I always think it's good to question authority, or maybe a better way to put it is to question what you're being told. Just question things. Don't take everything for granted. I do this on a very minute level. There's a guy on YouTube, I find his channel really interesting. I like to watch it a lot. It's him and I'm not going to get into who or what it is, but the channel has changed direction. And I was one of the first ones to question whether, I won't get into it. Bottom line is I questioned why the channel changed direction, because I thought maybe he's taken advantage of Patreon viewers, etc. And the more I've questioned it, now a lot of people are questioning it because he won't answer questions. He won't answer questions for me on his webpage. And now other people are calling, and he's just going to say, oh, come on, folks, just bear with me. Folks, whenever there's money involved, question things. Always question things when there's money involved. If it has to do with your job and how much you're getting paid, question it. Question everything. But man, when money's involved, question it. You know, how much, and has there ever been anything where money was more involved than a treasure hunt, and specifically Forrest Fenn's treasure hunt? So then, we want to see, then he comes out with the photos. It's just Fenn. It's just Fenn. The finder's not there because the finder doesn't want to be identified, and the finder doesn't want the location identified, and we can all understand that. But it was so funny because all we see is Fenn with his treasure. And it looks like, because the finder's not viewed in the photos, others and myself said, wow, it's just Fenn with his treasure again. And a lot of people think Forrest Fenn retrieved the treasure on his own for whatever reason. The theories are many. He's just gotten to the point where he doesn't want to deal with the stress of it anymore. Speaking of heart attacks. He's 90 years old. He decided, look, it's been out there 10 years. Everybody had a clear shot at it. Nobody was able to find it. And by God, I've been sued. My family's been stalked. My house has been broken into. I'm sick and tired of it. And I'm going to have someone like Shiloh go retrieve it. Everyone's going to keep their mouth shut. You're never going to find out the location or the finder, because that's what I'm telling you has happened. And no one's... What a beautiful... I have talked to people who have agreed with me. What a beautiful, smart way to end this. Because if you just ended it by saying, I'm going to give you 3 more months and then I'm going to go retrieve it if it's not found, he would have probably had a class action lawsuit by people saying they didn't get a fair try, they didn't get a fair shot, and they've spent this much money looking, and they just got into it 2 years ago, et cetera, and other people have had longer to search, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sure his lawyers, if he ever discussed getting it back, just said, you're going to have a huge headache. What better way to retrieve that treasure than to say it's found by an anonymous person and it was found in a location that cannot be disclosed? It just totally covers it. Well, people kept up about it, and so then the photos, well, I just discussed the photos, and then finally Fenn said, okay, well, the finder now says I can tell you it was in Wyoming. Which, went over kind of, some people thought it was in Wyoming, some didn't. Some people are still looking for the treasure, folks. Some people are looking for where the finder found it. I mean, to me, it's kind of crazy because it's over, but I believe it's over because of the photos. But lots of conjecture about the way the find was announced and this whole thing was ended, and a lot of people just thought Fenn retrieved the treasure. And then 2 months later, he's dead. It's just amazing. It's just an amazing timeline. All right, well, here's some quotes about where people ask Fenn about kind of death and dying. Well, before I do that, I'll go on and just read a very brief obituary. There's a really nice story in here. Fenn did die on September 7, 2020. Died of natural causes, which we suspect to have been a heart attack followed by a fall. I think falling is statistically one of the highest events physically that happens to elderly people as a cause of death. But obviously, if he had a heart attack preceding the fall, that would be... Someone said of Fenn, one of my favorite people in the world. He was a legend. Here's kind of a really cool thing I want to read to you. This was cool. Oh, someone said, well, see, here we go. Someone named Parachista said, Forrest must have known he was dying when he announced the treasure was found a few months ago. Well, no. It's kind of odd, right? I mean, this is written for his obituary. No. Supposedly died of a heart attack. Parachista Kakpur. Don't know if I got the name pronounced right. This is a cool story someone wrote. Fenn loved people. I mean, he loved to go out and he loved to be the center of the attention and he loved to tell stories and he just loved to be in the limelight, let's face it. Someone that had breakfast with Fenn, apparently Fenn and some people in Santa Fe, some other gentlemen would meet at some restaurant for breakfast often, and they would all, it's one of those granddad things that small towns sometimes have. Everybody meets in the morning down at the drugstore. I say that because my dad, when he retired, he moved to a town called Tappahannock on the Rappahannock River. He lived in a condo there, and he would go down every morning to his drugstore and sit with a few other gentlemen, and they would all talk and have their coffee. So Fenn liked to do that, and this one guy that would be at these morning breakfasts said Fenn loved to be the center of attention. He loved to tell a story. He loved to have everyone listening to what he was saying. He really got a kick out of it, and he loved having notoriety, and he loved being in the, I guess by extension you could say he loved being in the news, etc. He loved being the center of attention. It's simple. Part 2 coming up, and by the way, for people who, if you're watching part 1, I'm telling you there's a part 2. If it doesn't show up in your auto rotation, go look for it. Just do a Google search on the name of this, which I think is The Strange End of Forrest Fenn, and you'll come up with all the parts. Or just go to IIWII Productions, and you'll come up with my channel, and just go in and you can look at all the videos. Part 2 coming up.